Hello and welcome to a new Italian PNC video. Today we're going to do the third installment in the Beyond the Ice Wall series, the world of Beyond the Ice Wall. Once again, I strongly recommend to watch the previous installments. Of course, those are videos on my channel of this series, because otherwise you will not be able to understand the full context of what we are looking at. This is a multi-project series that spans the real world, where alternate history happens, a fantasy or slash fantastic world, and of course the world beyond the ice walls. For those that do not know, the world beyond the ice walls is what was believed to be what is outside of the Antarctic walls, so what is away from the actual limits of our world. So of course our spheric world this year is what we call the Earth, and in the world of Beyond the Ice Walls there is land outside of the walls, which in this story the European explorers of the Age of Exploration managed to achieve by entering the gates of the ice walls. In this video we will be looking at the Sentinels gate, which is this gate right here. So the third gate in order. We have done in the first video the Serpent's Gate, then we have done the Tiger's Gate, and finally we will now be doing the Sentinel's Gate. So, for those that were not here before, we have explored the continents of Xenonesia, an archipelago that is inhabited by headless people called the Blemie. Then we have explored Dishiposu, which are the remnants of the original human inhabitants of the people in this area. Then we have explored the Aten, or continent, which is the biggest landmass in the second ring outside of the ice wall, and also the continent or minor continent slash island of Motuputua, and also Pairiri, where we have discovered many different species or races of beings like orc brownies, leprechauns, goblins, gnomes, dwarves, hobgoblins, and of course the descendants of the European colonizers such as the British, the Portuguese, the Russians, the Koreans, the French, I think I already said Portuguese, the Spanish, of course. The Spanish created republics everywhere. And now we will be finally looking at the original voyage that Magellan, the great explorer of the 15th and 16th century, the 16th century, explorer Magellan, did to discover the Sentinel's Gate. So basically what happened in this world is that Magellan did his exploration, which in our world was the one to circumnavigate the globe and explored this strait right here, and of course went around the Earth in one way or another. But in this timeline, the ice walls, or Antarctica in other words, open up and creates a gate to the next part of existence, in this case the land beyond the ice walls. So they traversed and got to the point where they were the Sentinel's Gate, and where a woman of godly or divine appearance, which is portrayed in this beautiful piece of art made by Ohawhewhe, is basically this divine entity that inspired the humans, and of course in this case the colonizers, to explore beyond the ice walls and beyond the gates. This is all explained in episode 1, so go back to that one if you have not watched it yet. And if you're interested in Aten, which is the biggest landmass and all of its creatures, I recommend also looking at that before this video. With that said, we will now start the Sentinel's Gates. So, the terrain here is largely flat, with thousands of small ponds connected by a network of shallow underground waterways maintained by burrowing aquatic arthropods. It is known for its eerie 2.5-meter tall penguins, who spend most of their time motionless along the shoreline, regularly spaced from each other, and staring out into the distance. It's these guys. All their movements seem to be carefully coordinated, and they will lethally attack those who attempt to disrupt them. Natives have developed a tradition of mimicking the Sentinels with costumes and ritualistic performances, so we can already see what the Sentinels of the Sentinel's Gate are. So the Sentinels in this case are not human beings, but actually inferior beings, which are kind of penguins. And these penguins are literally the guardians of this gate, which if you're wondering why this is what the gate looks like instead of ice, just the ice of Antarctica, is because once the gate opened in the 16th century, the entire ecosystem of this area changed. So let's see if we can see the native people of this land before we actually check something else. No, I believe we have to start by the colonizers. Okay, we can go for the first colonizer in order of simply vicinity. So we have the Argentinians one here. Also, we can notice that the Argentinians, which if you don't understand where we are, we're in South America. If the Argentinians had to do with the Sentinel's Gate, that probably distracted them from actually conquering the rest of mainland South America. So that is why they probably don't control already all of Patagonia and seem to have some minor conflicts here with the Mapuche people probably, or other Guarani Native American people. So, Marambio, and this is this thing, Argentina. While a budding power, small in colonial capability, the Argentines couldn't sit closest to Antarctica and right next to a gate and do nothing with dastardly British pirates stalking nearby seas, tainting the waters with their putrid tea. With jealous glares aimed at their prized Malvinas, which in this case are the Falkland Islands, right here, that seem to be in control of Argentina, so big dub there. In partnership with the previous Austrian landowners, they have spared a stretch of land and its people from Anglo-Saxon devastation. So already we can trace a line from the colonizer or post-colonial power of Argentina, and seeing that they already have started a process of secondary colonization in the Sentinel's gates here in Marambio. We are always checking lines to see where the colonizers go and where the colonies start from. So we know the major colonizers are of course the European powers and some Asian powers, but there are exceptions to this, as the case is for Argentina. Then let's check what the British are doing, because of course you can't really spare some land out of the ice walls and expect the British to not colonize from there. There are multiple positions I can see the British starting from, but I think the most sensible one is the Cape of Good Hope, simply because of its vicinity and of course also because it is closer to the non-depicted, or actually very, very smallly depicted Saint Helena Island, which is also British possession, or at least I assume it is, as is in real life. So we're gonna go like this and see what the crown colony of Antipoda is. For the meaning of Antipoda, I know this myself. Antipode is the opposite of the northern hemisphere in this case, which comes from the ancient Greek, the ancient Greek vocabulary, and so Antipoda just probably means the opposite of the North Pole. Becoming increasingly hard to maintain thanks to the Neuswabians seeking to absorb this territory and the Argentines seeking to avoid breathing the same air as the British at all costs. The Empire has worked to counteract separatist sentiment among the German population by making the territory a bastion for natives displaced by expansion of Neuswabenland. This has proven to be effective, but more unrest has emerged as settler communities are increasingly unsettled by the Senti rituals and witchcraft. I'm going to assume that the Senti are the native people of the Ice Gate, because yes, indeed, the Ice Gates and of course the land beyond the Ice Gates most of the times actually have native populations of beings or humans, and or of course both. Now here we have a little scene of the native population and the colonizers approaching. Taboos. I will wear your skin. Nice. How the fuck do you wear short sleeves with this cold? Red fruit and white flowers are associated with death, disease and poison. As such, gifting one is considered a death threat. This belief was passed on the Noongeor of the continent of Thoth. Marriage with people from other races is strictly forbidden, though men can take foreign concubines. Women who marry foreigners are shunned and might become targets of honor killings. Just like Sicily in the 19th century, okay. Tribes are ruled by a single chieftain, usually a shaman who can communicate with higher powers, or at least that's what he believes. Due to the harsh environments of the gates and the paradoxically plentiful fish populations, most coastal tribes are settled, with chiefs laying claim to the waters around the village. Very interesting. So we already see some dynamics forming here with the colonizers and the colonized. Now let's see the major colony, which appears to be Neuswabenland, which I am going to assume is a German colony, of course. Okay, so this one I am really not sure what the parent country is, since there don't seem to be any purple nations, so I'm going to assume this is independent and already post-colonial. So let me check. The young nation that now dominates the Gate of the Sentinels started as a diverse array of colonies, mainly settled by the Spanish, who later sold off much of the territory to Austrian nobility. That is still part of the Spanish Empire, so we will be tracing a faint line in this case, because it's not direct colonization, I suppose. But it still counts as part of the Spanish Old Colonial Empire. Plus, I know that by this point in the story, the Spanish colonial empire is basically dead, but still it makes sense for it to associate with this ex-colony of theirs, even if the land was bought up by the Austrians, and this is why probably it's called Neuswabenland, which is New Swabia for you English speakers. Well, I'm English speaker too, but you know. In the wake of the Napoleonic Wars, the various divided territories were flooded with waves of German refugees, who organized and united the colonies to become an independent nation, with neutral feelings towards all but the French. Commonly referred to by us travelers as the gatekeepers, the New Swabians have used their position as a center of commerce to enrich themselves and become the most developed and influential nation across all 4 gates. That is amazing. All of the 4 gates. This is the most important country in the 4 gates. This is actually insane. I was not aware, because the northern gate, the Serpent's Gate, has actually a lot of vibrant and well-lived colonies. So I was not expecting at all that a kind of lesser colony like Neuswabenland could be this powerful. But it's interesting to see. Let's see if we have other colonies in the Serpent's Gate. It does not look like there's much more to say about the serpents. Oh wait, there is some rituals of the local population. Rites of the new religion include a human sacrifice of either willing tributes or prisoner wars, kind of like the Aztecs, enduring the Antarctic wilderness completely naked, that is insane, and also ritual cannibalism, because why not, I suppose. Of course, these are not real people, so don't get them confused with the real natives of America, which were perfectly normal people, right? These guys are in the ice gates. These are probably magical beings, at the least, or something, you know. It's probably not gonna be that clear. So now we actually get to the meat of the video, which is the huge continent of Thoth. Okay, so I'm going to pronounce this Thoth, alright? So very easy on the TH sound, because otherwise I could pronounce it in the other way everybody is thinking, but I'm not gonna do it, because of course that would be of poor taste, most than all. So let's start by the description of the continent itself. Thoth, the nomad continent. A landmass unlike any other, this continent and its many follower island circles This continent and its many follower islands circle the waters of the Second World in a constant latitude journey that takes 1,500 years for each leap. This rate is slow on a human timescale, but thousands of times faster than any normal continental drift. In fact, many of the continent's biomes are in a state of continuous flux, as shifting longitudes and ocean currents keep climates unpredictable in the long term. Forests, rivers, even lakes shift their positions in timescales brief enough for humans to notice and take advantage of. Thoth was in fact the first place even reached by humans from the first world, which means the humans from Terra proper, so Earth, like the land inside of the ice walls. The Yagan, an Amerindian people from South America, sailed here 7,500 years ago, giving rise to the Bai Nungeor, who inhabit much of Thoth today. A group of Carthaginian sailors, blown far off course in freak storms, followed 5,500 years later, introducing agriculture and urbanization. At last, 400 years before Magellan's fateful expedition, the Norgri arrived, Scandinavian immigrants from the failing colonies of Newfoundland and Greenland, or of course Vinland, as one would call Newfoundland in those periods of times, who arrived through unusual means after their ship encountered a vortex in the Bermuda Triangle. So we already have the Bermuda Triangle as a thing, so that's interesting. These three peoples have vied for control of Thoth's alien landscapes ever since, a landscape defined not only by its inexplicable migration by its origins, but by its origins, of course, because it moves, so, you know, that's already something to be aware about. Thoth was in fact a part of Antarctica, or the Parade, 37 million years ago. During the time it was a temperate and forested land. For unknown reasons, it split off and assumed its current motion around the time, and ever since it has played the host to many unique plant and animal species originally found on the rest of the Parade. I don't know what this is. I don't know what the Parade is. Parades? I don't know how to pronounce this. Sharp-billed penguins, giant-toothed birds, hippo-like tongulates, giant mole crickets, camels with anteater-like faces make up only a handful of these. Still, despite this, several civilizations have thrived here. First, the New Carthaginians Phociae, alright, who drove out of the Bay Nunger for much of Thoth's best agricultural land, then the great Norgri kingdom of Andolant, and most recently the great Makamazoo Empire, an expansionist state with a unique evangelical religion. Okay, so what to do with this? What to do with all this information? We have to analyze what is actually going on, of course, because otherwise we'll just get confused and, just not really understand the scope of what is actually happening. So, very clearly we have three major waves of migration. So the first migration is the one that actually comes natural with the vicinity of the ice gates, and of course, which means Antarctica and Thoth. So, if we want to trace a small line to actually portray this, we will do it in a, let me just get my black here, a black color very simply, and just do it like this. So we know by history that there was Beringia here, a united landmass before the water levels rose. So we know that the Amerindians came from here, or wait, actually from here, yeah, to America. This is a pretty accepted fact. So we know that these guys went all the way here and established more and more communities of Amerindian, and it's actually Amerindian might not be the best way to describe it. I would just say Native American, because some people are sensitive about the word Amerindian. In general, the Native American peoples of the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and all these post-colonial nations all came from the Bering Straits. And of course that means that originally they were from Asia, in some way or another, if we believe the theory of migrations. So, to make it short, at some point the Patagonian people of America managed to travel all the way up to the Malvinas or Falkland Islands, then to the Antarctic area, and probably because Antarctica was not really hospitable for anything, they kept going south, more south, and since the ice gate was not yet opened, I believe at some point they just kind of went their way with water, or maybe because it was still moving, so it probably was closer to the mainland, since we acknowledge that Thoth is a nomad landmass, which means it's constantly moving. And so at some point these people from all the way back in North America went to South America, and at some point they went from the Sentinel's Gate, where they are still the native population as explained by all these graphs, and arrived into the actual landmass. So let me check once more who the first are. 7,500 years ago. By Nunguer. I would not know which of these are the By Nunguer people. I have to figure it out somehow, because I'm not sure which ones are the By Nunguer and which ones are not. I am not sure at the moment, but the gist of it is that at some point, boom, they arrived to the landmass. That's what I was actually trying to get to. So this is the first wave of migration. Then we have a second wave of migration that is very different from the first. This one I will just put the color of Carthage, which in this case is green, because it's controlled by what I assume is some sort of Ottoman subject state. Of course, Carthage does not exist at this point in time, but I'm just using this to make a comparison. So, we have Carthage, and they were probably commercing in these areas as the Carthaginians used to do, probably not in Brazil, but you know, the myths of Carthage all doing this entire West Africa path, and at some point the currents somewhere along here just got them to go all the way into the ice gates and arrived to the land of Thoth, where they established a colonial state that introduced agriculture and civilization as a whole in some part of this continent. Once again, since we have not yet started to reach which part of it is, maybe it's in the title. Carthaginians? No, not really, it doesn't say. I'm gonna just say that probably has to do with this one. I'm just gonna assume, alright? I'm not sure. Let's just say it's this one. So, we have two flows of migration here. Now, let's go for the third one, and probably the weirdest one at all. So, we know the Scandinavians had to do with this entire migration deal. Therefore, we know that they have colonies here, and at some point in time they reached Finland, and this was like something that happened in real life, and they reached Newfoundland and Labrador, called it Markland here, Vinland there, and somehow in this world they got to the Triangle of the Bermuda, and somehow they just spawned here. As weird as that is. But that is what we have to understand from the story of these migrations. That's basically it. Now, this is probably good as it is. We don't need to really expand on it more, these migration routes. I think they're interesting enough as they are itself. I think we can actually go to the next step, which in this case would be the actual nations of this huge continent. I hope so, at least. Let me check if the YouTube is working. That should not have happened. I hope that doesn't give me copyright issues. Gonna just restart the playlist here. Anyways, let's see the first of these countries. Munda Baria. Wait, no, this is Basque majority, what the fuck? No, okay. Let's start from the north. Otherwise this will be like impossible. Also, what the hell is that? Okay, we have a lot of things to cover. I just get back to our feet. Let's just start by the Republic of Antipoda. It looks like pretty acceptable, plus it's a big landmass. This probably has to do something with the Spanish, like basing myself off the name. Though the climate is temperate at best, not exactly similar to South America, the conquistadors of this former Spanish colony are not very different from those anywhere else. Fond of gold and native women, and ready to take the evil without any regard of who might protest, slowly expanding from the tip of the island eastwards, rolling over a collection of Ibatal tribes and minor colonies without pause. So already we have a new Spanish colony here in the like, you know, this area. So we know Neuswabenland used to be Spanish at some point, before they sold it to the Austrian nobles, and now we have another post-Spanish colony, which is Antipoda. Also, we have a sea-bound man doing a poor job of watching his back here, because he's gonna be eaten by the Bauchtraut, the largest land animal of the Faroe Islands. One must always be on the lookout for these mighty and aggressive beasts, as they are known to move with surprisingly quick footsteps. These look like some kind of dinosaur, honestly. Even these things, the claws. Okay, next country, next nation, we have Neuswabenland, a breakaway nation of Finns seeking to escape the Scandinavian dominion. The Neuswabenlanders have done well to survive in these foreign lands through trade and with pirates, strong ties with local people, and sheer grits. The Finnish settlers have forged a strong confederation with the native sea-bound tribes, respecting their territories and defending each other against colonial incursions. So this is very, very interesting, honestly. So you can see on one side we have the Spanish, which conquered everything, destroyed basically everything, and doesn't really care about the natives. On the other part, we have the post-Scandinavian Empire, which reminder that these guys were already part of a big realistic Scandinavian Empire, and apparently at some point the Finns of this area escaped from the empire and settled in Thoth, but at the same time decided to ally with the local population, which is honestly really interesting when you think about it. Now, on to the next territory, we have the Kingdom of Thermometala. Thermometala is a part of the United Kingdom, or at least I think that's what it means, and I'm going, yeah, it's this one. It's this really little part of land. The Kingdom of Thermometala represents the first native title from beyond the known world, inherited by a member of the British royal family. The population of and architecture of its major cities grew to resemble those of the Isles more and more with each passing year. So what does this mean? This is like Canada. This is basically like Canada. So it's a title of the British monarch, like the King of Canada, I believe that is the title, yeah, King of Canada. And it is at least modern, in the modern day. I don't think it was in the olden days, but you know what I mean. So it's the King of Canada, in this case it's the king of this one landmass, which is called once again Thermometala, and it is basically being completely colonized by the British, both ethnically and culturally. I mean architectonically. Now we have the Inuit Kingdom. Formerly British-controlled land of warring tribes stole the guns, kicked out the colonizers, and established a fiercely isolationist kingdom that killed Spaniards on bongs, what the fuck, on sight. Trades with the Neuswabenland and the Boonzeriachers. Okay. So this is like a collection of islands which are now controlled by the native warring tribe people, which is fine, I guess. We also have the Kingdom of Talubraki here, which is a British vassal for now, which I assume means eventually it will get integrated in the colony of Thermometala, or the Kingdom of Thermometala. Then we have Boonzeriach. After the collapse of the First Prussian Empire, the colonial government lost control of mainland Akradam. The Prussian loyalist population fled to the islands and consolidated their power, establishing an independent kingdom. So we already have a post-Prussian state here, which is very interesting when you think about it, consider Prussia is here, but we won't really trace a line because Prussia is over. After the Napoleonic Wars, what remained of the Prussian Empire was split and divided upon multiple areas beyond the ice gates, so it doesn't really make sense to trace a line because at this point it's so like distant from its original Prussian mainland that it doesn't really make sense to connect them. Finally, this 2-1 is Kamakradam. Okay, so these are the ones that actually were part of the Prussians, who actually didn't flee and actually rebelled against the Prussians and gained independence. While the Boonzeriach are the ones that actually managed to maintain Prussian control, or at least like cultural Prussian control, not really the actual Prussian government, because of course it's Napoleonic controlled nowadays. Norgemark, former Swedish colony in the successor state of the Hogomir-Georgi Confederation. Swedes and Norway cooperate to oppress the Akradami people. Okay, that's kind of awful, but you know, It makes sense since both the Nordgri are basically descendants of the Nords that were basically transported here from the Bermuda Triangle, and the Swedish were like, well, it's kind of like the descendants of the actual Norse. So it makes sense that they will be cooperating in whatever awful action they're actually doing. So, you know, it makes sense to a certain extent. And then we have the big, what appears to be a very, very big part of the Thoth Islands or Thoth continent, which appears to be, and I'm going to say probably, what the major part of the Nordgri Empire is. So this is called okay, fuck, why are all, oh my god, these names are terrible. I'm just gonna say the second word, Andolans. The old Nordgri Empire was fought, oh my god, was thought lost only for their long-lost cousins, the Scandinavians, to arrive among the other Europeans and draw on fond ideas held by many Nordgri and their own strength to put the pieces back together and establish this. It's not exactly a colony or even necessarily a puppet, but gratitude and very strong feeling of brotherhood makes them inseparable from Scandinavia. So basically what happened here is, you know, remember how the ancient, or at least like medieval Nordic people, transported magically from Bermuda Triangle to, boom, the Thoth continent? Well, at some point the actual Scandinavians of the 17th or 18th century arrived to Thoth and found themselves in, like, not adults, but like they found their ancestors or the descendants of their ancestors on the island. So it makes sense for them to cooperate and to help them out. So this is why the Freiberg Andolant exists, which, reminder, there used to be an even bigger Andolant Empire which used to own all of this, I suppose, probably. Also you have a huge colony here, Helligdorabning, which is actually part of Scandinavia itself. So it's part of the Scandinavian Empire, so it means we have a line to trace here, aren't we? Okay, gonna be tracing a line right over here. Also Nessie, you know, the Loch Ness Monster, that's pretty funny. That goes all the way here, all the way up to the Sentinels gates, probably like this, because we want to avoid the penguins. And simply goes all the way here. So, long overlooked by their Nordgri kingdoms to the south, the modern Scandinavians were the first to unite these poor and frigid lands under a single crown, sending a healthy amount of Norwegians and Icelanders to tame their familiar lands. Despite having colonized their lands, the Scandinavians could not hope to keep up with the native Nupuru people when it comes to surviving these frigid islands, as their bodies can withstand the winter cold with little more than a coating of whaling fat. Which is very interesting. So the original natives, which once again are basically the descendants of the Patagonians here, the original Native American Patagonians, have been so much used to actually living in these cold, very, very frigid islands, and of course the ice gate, that they developed extreme resilience and resistance to the cold. Which would make sense, that colonial powers trying to exploit these lands would use this to their advantage. Or in this case to their disadvantage, because they don't really have a chance against people that really understand how the terrain and how the world in this area works. Then we have the Inupuri Republic here. In keeping with Thoth's reputation of being a graveyard for short-lived colonial effort, this former Scottish colony is an independent nation. Careful not to end up like its neighbor to the east, the territory organized itself into quite a functional multi-ethnic federation. Though there aren't many Scots remaining, the natives and whoever else showed up did like the idea of tartan as a signifier. What is tartan? I don't know what tartan is. As a signifier of lineage, and have also picked up bagpipes. Oh, tartan. Okay, I understand the Scottish thing, right. Some say you can even hear something of a Scottish accent when they speak English. That's pretty nice. Some Scots actually exist in the, second ring, I guess. It's pretty interesting. Okay, now let's go to Olanohuku, the result of the first large-scale colonial effort by the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, which later fell under the Austrian control, a disorganized mass of Austro-Hungarian duchies and Polish free cities quibbling over economic matters while scattered villages of Baltic and Slavic peasants war with natives in the back country. So this is basically a Polish-Lithuanian colonial effort. Also, as you can see, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth is not a thing anymore. It's been partitioned by what appears to be a semi-independent Poland, or probably independent Poland, and of course the Russian Empire, which owns Lithuania and probably all the old lands of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. So yeah, the Ola no Ruku is not really something to be fond of in this case. Then we have a bunch of minor colonies here, a lot of them, damn. We have a city of Mesothermia, okay, kind of like, sounds like hypothermia, which is part of the United Kingdom, so another part to connect with our greater colonial effort for the British, which I have not traced. No, wait, I did trace. Yes, let's trace it better here, because we just traced the colony of Antipoda, so we now know that they actually went all the way into like the main area here, and they established multiple colonies. In part we have Mesothermia, then of course, as we already saw earlier, we have I guess the Nupur. Nah, I don't want to count the Nupur Republic since it's Scottish and not really British. I mean, not really English. Of course we have the Kingdom of Thermometalla, and we have the like British vassal state here. And also this thing, which I assume, it's not really said, but I assume it's also, oh wait, maybe not. Oh wait, yeah, British settlers. I read that, so I'm gonna assume this is part of the British Empire. So we have British influence. Oh, this one too. So we have even more British influence. We're gonna get to that later though. Let's get these first. So the city of Mesothermia is a British trade hub and naval base which played a significant role in the Yehustan rebellion against the Spanish, now seeking to return to their newfound allies against the French. Then we have, let me check, the Nuevas Baleares, a former Spanish colony home to Spanish colonials who fled the Yehusta. Sardinian and Catalan are prominent languages here. That is very interesting. I have never heard of something that actually mentions Sardinian as a possible colonizer language. It's so rare. Probably because the Sardinians were very isolated in their history until the actual Kingdom of Piedmont Sardinia was a thing, which makes sense since apart from the ports they kind of like to remain in the inlands. Which, you know, it's an island, so why would it be that case? But at the same time I realized that all the times they did actually come near the ports, they would be conquered by other peoples like the Carthaginians, the Romans, the Aragonese, the, I don't know, Byzantines, Muslims, and so on and so forth. Then we have the Calo-Horean Confederacy. Ruled by enterprising pirate adventurers, this lawless state is known as a gathering place for all manners of social rejects. Well, it's pretty small and doesn't look like it's very relevant, so I don't think it's gonna be a big problem. Then here, bordering Mesothermia, we actually have the Yehusta, which appears to be what's the city of Mesothermia had a role in, the Republic of Yehusta. Probably restored to its former glory after spending a period of time under the Spanish heel. They have a very traditional way of understanding republicanism, harkening all the way back to Carthage, so we have finally where the Carthaginians actually went, apparently, which is great since we were searching for that earlier. Let me just get the actual thing here. Yeah. So now we actually know where the Carthaginians actually went. Apparently, can't say this is the only part they went to, but at least we are 100% sure that this is actually one of the places where they actually arrived to. But you know, it's good to know, very good to know. It is kind of far away when you think about it, but at the same time, these islands, or I mean this continent does move, as it's been explained, so it wouldn't make too much issues for it to actually, you know, move around and change location. Wait, where is it? Oh yeah, here. So maybe it was closer once the Carthaginians arrived. Then we have the Moroccan population. Wait, what? Oh, it's all the way split into these territories, which are independent? After the collapse of Moroccan colony, the two native ethnic groups took control and plunged the island in a civil war. So there was an ethnic Moroccan colony at some point, apparently. Interesting, very interesting. Huh. And at some point Morocco collapsed, and that is why they are now independent. But they have like pockets of Moroccan population sprinkled in. And very interesting, honestly. Very, very interesting. Then we have, oh, a Dutch colony. Those are rare. Which is weird, considering the Adeifk, or whatever that thing's... Oh, wait, now that makes sense. It's actually gone. The Netherlands is gone. It's now Batavia. Very sad. Which means probably doesn't make sense to connect it. Just let's remember that the 13, which is Warmekener Kust, is... Wait. Warmekener Kust is a colony of the, or an ex-colony of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, currently facing a native farmer rebellion as the Barbadicane and the Neuswabenland prepare to swoop in and take the land for themselves. I don't know what either of those things are. Oh my god. Then we have the Republic of Antipoda, natives and nativized rural settlers rebelling against the Warmemekust rulers. So yeah, we have a conflict between these two groups. And finally we have a French colony here. Strangely enough, we did not see the French anywhere here, which is very weird considering they are one of the major powers of this colonial expansion into the Second Ring, as was seen in the continent of Aten and even partially, I believe, in the continent of Xenonesia. But in this case, it appears the only actual colonial effort they put in, apparently, maybe this one too, but apparently in this area it's only this little island here, or this collection of small islands, and it's basically nothing. It's called Batio Dore and is not relevant at all. Then we have the Barbadicane orders of the... okay, whatever. It's Venetian... Whoa! Venetian port. When Italy mentions. When Venice mentions. Big boy. Okay, cool. Very cool. So Venice... okay, Venice is gone, but you know what I mean. They used to have a bunch of colonies here. We have one here, Getro Splendente. Let's just color it in the green color for Italy, since Venice is actually gone. I know it's technically independent at this point, but you know, just makes me happy. Okay, so Barbadicane is like a Venetian state. Okay, so we have, oh wow, we have actually a Austrian colony that survived as an Austrian colony, which is very, very, very rare. It's extremely rare in this timeline for Austrian colonies to actually go their way, apparently at least. So it is very interesting that they actually managed to have one decently surviving colony. Very interesting again, because we know the deal with the Neuswabenland, which is this one, was that they like owned they owned the land, but they were not the original colonizers, so always were the Spanish. But we have an actually completely Austrian colony, so it's interesting. And it's Neuswabenland, which is literally New South Alps. So kind of sounds like the Australia region, New South Wales, whatever. Low on settlers and support from Europe, so the colonial government focuses on keeping the native population at peace and loyal through religious, linguistic, and cultural education. They've done a surprisingly good job so far, but the Makamazoo aren't happy about the spread of Catholicism so close to their border. And the Makamazoo are this huge, like multi-region spanning empire, which is, I assume, the biggest of all powers in the entire Thoth continent, which is honestly surprising. I was not expecting to be this big. So, the Makamazoo Empire is an empire that began its rise 4 centuries ago, has reached the zenith of its power and influence. The core theories of the empire have been systematically assimilated via religious conversion and the construction of the Ohawhewhe temples, serving as economic, religious, and administrative hubs of the respective city. I'm going to assume this is a post-Carthaginian state, if I had not read it already, simply because the Ohawhewhe temple sounds something like Carthaginians would do, and also the people here don't really look Native American. They just look like Middle Eastern maybe, and or whites. Okay, let's check the Malik faith. So this is the actual like faith of many of these native people, I'm going to assume. This native tradition is the... Okay, so also symbolism, triangle, no, wait, it's a square and or two triangles if you want to see it that way. Multiple triangles if you want to see it that way. The Ma'alek faith. This native tradition is the most organized and fervorous of the native Thothian religions. Primarily practiced and promoted by the Makamazoo Empire, a monolithic version of the old Punic pantheon. So I was right, it is actually Carthaginian. Punic is another word for Carthage. Carthaginian. The Ma'alek believes worship of the god. I am not gonna pronounce this. I will get monetized if I pronounce this. It's like an old Punic god, an old Canaanite god. And believe all other gods or of both the Foshiari and knowing their parents to be lesser spirits beholden or opposed to Baal. Fuck, I actually said the name, whatever. The faith holds that mankind was created by a malicious lesser being called El, associated with the Christian god after the arrival of the Norgri. Oh my god, why all these... The playlists keep dying on me. Okay. In order to create intelligent beings that would suffer and die, thus marrying the perfect universe. But Baal gave mankind fire and rain, which they would use to shelter and nourish themselves and worship. Well, whatever. You know what? This is kind of like anti everything, so it's kind of controversial. The important thing is, I assume this is like a new Punic religion, so it's kind of the successor of the Carthaginian faith, which is, you know, makes sense since the Carthaginians did get here. Once again, I remind you, this whole thing. Oh, so this is where it went. Damn. So this is the center of the actual Carthaginian voyage. Here. Also, we have another funny creature here, the lycopods, always hopping. They are scarcely standing still. When they stand still, they look you in the eye and they tell you the date of your death and also your coordinates, your IP, and probably even your mother's maiden's name. Yes, that is also true. The Thothian bearded hound are related to domesticated dogs in the known world. The canines of Thoth are descended from Culpeo foxes, which were domesticated in Tierra del Fuego by the Proto-Yagan peoples that originally settled, so the southern Native Americans of Patagonia. Also, we have a local girl here, a charming Iminoro woman. If we remove the... Wait. Oh, I can't remove it. She's defaced forever. Very sad. We have a couple more states to go before this episode ends. I don't think I'm going to do, like, the entire thing. Probably. I mean, I am going to finish the continent, of course, that is what I promised. We have more British territories, more British vessels here in the colony of Romansland, which sounds like Romans land, whatever. Who needs to win the favor of an exotic great power when you can bribe their upper class and economically undermine them instead? That's a definitively British thing to do, that's for sure. Then we have this fucking mess of a name that I'm not even going to try pronounce. The aristocrats of this French-controlled territory have won the favor of the Makamazoo through an enthusiastic, albeit detached interest in their native religion and tradition. We have a colony of Portugal. Whoa, Portuguese colony? Color me surprised. I'm joking. I'm not surprised at all. The colonies have... The Portuguese have quite a relatively big amount of colonies. So I'm going to put it like from Brazil, just like I did for the colonies in the continent of Atem. As you can see here, I already had Motuputua, some colonies here, all from Brazil. So I'm just gonna say it's from Brazil that they started their journey on. It's probably not right, but you know, it is still a Portuguese colony, or at least an ex-Portuguese colony. This like passage is starting to get very, very crowded. You can see like 4 different... Oh my god. We even have like... Yeah, we have space, like barely. Man. Terra do Fiorde, Portugal. When it back when it was the first place anyone passed after coming through the gates of Sentinel, they had gained tremendous wealth from letting ships stop in their whatever. So basically what this means is that this used to be the first thing the people that trespassed the Sentinel's Gate would see, so that's why originally it was used kind of like a launching point for other colonization efforts, which was why it was originally like, you know, relevant. But apparently now it's not the case anymore, because there's more options and better options as a whole. Finally we get the biggest, or at least not the biggest, the second biggest I suppose after the Thoth, after the Makamazoo Empire. And we have the second biggest state here, which is called Munda Baria. Already I remember seeing Basque somewhere, so it's pretty interesting. Oh my god, Basque majority. That is crazy. Look how big it is. Look how big this slice of land is. This thing is the size like of France, Spain, Portugal, and maybe even more combined. And it's all Basque majority. That is fucking crazy. Ambitious Basque majority nation that seeks to not only expand its territory within Thoth, but to establish itself as a colonial empire in its own right. The ambitious country is well aware that it lacks the wealth, development, and manpower that the imperial powers of the known world possess, so it has adopted a unique strategy in order to grab as much land as possible in a short time. They purposely target hard to manage isolated, dangerous, and otherwise undesirable regions that are free for the taking. To avoid wasting too much money, they start by rounding up a small group of peasants, dumping them in some hellish far-off corner of the world, check in a few months later to see if they survive, send reinforcements if they did, try again if they didn't. Trading with those who no one else will, buying and selling illegal goods from pirates, both foreign and homegrown. Young men are encouraged to raise the black flags and set sail, fending from the sands and high seas, are returning to the motherland every so often to trade and transport a ship of unfortunate peasants to their next colonial targets. This has indeed worked. With colonial possessions in the parasite-ridden lands of Antilia, the corpse-covered islands of Maldantis, and around the flesh-eating volcano of Ohawhewhe, as well as more loosely controlled territories conquered through their esteemed pirates, Munda Baria is gradually accruing enough wealth to perhaps one day compete with the major powers in the regions that aren't nightmarishly awful places to live. That was absolutely insane. That was actually absolutely insane. I had no idea what I was watching. I mean, what I was reading, honestly. Oh my god, this keeps like happening. Stop. Oh no. Not the ad. It's so over. Whatever. So, yeah. We're done, kind of. I want to look at these things first. Because we haven't really... Okay, wait, there is one more thing to do, which is the Ohawhewhe Kingdom. Being isolated on these poor rocky islands for over 1,000 years, the Ohawhewhe people were more than eager to trade with British settlers, hence the openness and close cooperation that evolved into near complete subservience. So they are a British vassal indeed. And finally, we have some little, images of the local populations here. We have 90% Americans, so like descendants of the Patagonian South Americans, then 10% Norse. We have a couple of taboos here, like we saw with the British, so giving them a flower is like telling them to die. They really hate foreigners, so they hate the Catholicisers missionaries. Then we have men take charge of hunting and defending the settlements, women forage and raise children, so like in the ancient times. When on these raids, the youth aren't considered part of the clan, so other clans won't attack their family's revenge, and their families won't avenge them if killed, which is probably a good idea as a whole. Clans' heads can have multiple wives, okay, that is probably not that weird compared to most of history. We have basically animism as a religion, that believe that all natural things have souls. Spirits can be contacted via trance, or like trance states. Multitudes of rites and practices to appease the guardian spirits of certain landmark objects, creatures. Different villages have different guardian spirits they worship, usually a mythologized ancestor. Finally, they are ruled by councils of shamans, clan heads, and chieftains. Seers, shamans, and elders held in high regard in a clan structure. So, also here we have the Kingdom of Echebaswal's like graph that explains how it works. It appears to be somewhat of a republic, since we have people that can vote and people that can vote but owes obedience to the rich. Can't vote has rights, which are foreigners, which in this case are British, has no rights, slaves. Yeah, makes sense. Maybe Christian? I don't know, this looks kind of Christian. When greeting someone of a higher status, of a foreign dignitary in a formal position, the lower one must prostrate himself. Kind of said to look like the British, looking all high and mighty. This thing is literally the island like, oh wait, I remember this. This is literally a serpent goddess of Minoan mythology, or I mean tradition. I remember like this little statue being of Minoan like remains. If you look it up, if you look up serpent goddess and then Crete, you'll see exactly this. Then we have a man here, polytheism, of course. They rule by elected kings with councils of wealthy citizens, and the merchants are regarded in high regard. And we have even like the ethnic division here. 60% basically Carthaginians and 40% descendants of the Patagonians. Ohawhewhe, what the fuck? Ohawhewhe is actually the name of the creator. Funny. Taboos pointing at the moon is considered an extremely bad luck. Speaking the name of the dead attracts evil spirits, and gifting red fruits is considered a death threat. Kind of what these guys do, but with the white flowers. Wait, is this white flower? Yeah, white flower. Okay. I think we have done enough for today. We explained the entire Sentinels gates, we explained the entire Thoth continents, even the societies, and the colonial powers, and all their little expeditions here. I'm going to remove these things that explain the expeditions of bygone powers. I'm going to keep those that are actually relevant to the story, so existing colonial powers, just as we did with Atem and Xenonesia. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. I will hope to make more, depending on how this one goes in the algorithm. The first episode was a real success. I really enjoyed all your support. I got a lot of more subscribers and views for that episode. And the second one was kind of a dud. I mean, it wasn't that bad, but less comparatively. So if this one goes worse than the second, I think I'm going to stop the series, because it's very time consuming to make these episodes and to read the lore and to explain everything and to kind of understand all the things behind. But if this has a lot of success like the first, or at least the second one, I'm going to continue, and maybe next episode we'll be looking at Antilia and the Mean and Mnevis, which seem to be, well, in the case of Antilia, in the Third Ring, so it's more interesting stuff. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and see you